All right, today we're going to connect some dots. Dots that stretch all the way from a massive volcanic eruption in Africa to sudden flight cancellations right here in India. Now I know it sounds like a wild story, but it shows just how connected our planet really is. Let's dig in.
So, here's the big question, right? How on earth does a volcano blowing its top in Africa cause flights to be grounded over North India? I mean, it sounds almost impossible, but that's exactly what happened. There's this powerful, invisible link between these two events, and we're going to trace it. Okay, so to really get our heads around this, let's start with what was happening right here, on our home turf. It all kicked off when a pretty serious alert went out, and suddenly, the entire aviation industry was on high alert.
Yeah, aviation authorities in North India, especially at major hubs like Delhi and Jaipur, had to issue a major warning. Why? Because something dangerous and totally invisible was drifting into their airspace, and it was a silent but very, very real threat to any plane in its path.
And this threat was no joke. We're talking international flights getting flat out canceled. Others had to be completely rerouted. The big danger? It was a severe threat to the aircraft engines. You see, the problem is this microscopic volcanic ash, these tiny bits of rock and glass. They get sucked into a jet engine, which is incredibly hot, right? They melt, and then they fuse onto the turbine blades, and that can cause the engine to stall. Just imagine that happening at 30,000 feet. Absolutely terrifying.
So the big mystery is, where did this invisible menace even come from? Well, to figure that out, we have to look way, way up into the atmosphere at a huge cloud that traveled an absolutely incredible distance to get to India.
And believe me, this was not your average cloud. The eruption shot a plume of ash and sulfur dioxide a staggering 15 kilometers straight up into the sky. To give you some perspective, that is way above where commercial planes fly, way above any weather we ever experienced down here. It was basically a floating island of volcanic debris high up in the stratosphere.
So you might be wondering, how did this cloud travel so far and so fast? The answer is something called the jet stream. The best way to think about it is like a superhighway in the sky. It's this super fast current of air that just grabbed the volcanic plume and acted like a giant conveyor belt, whisking it across entire continents.
And man, what a journey it was. Just think about this path. It starts with the eruption in Ethiopia. From there, the cloud crosses the Red Sea, travels over Yemen and Oman, passes through Pakistan's airspace, and then, finally, drifts right into India. It's just a remarkable trip for what is essentially an invisible cloud of dust.
So we followed the trail of this dangerous cloud all the way back. And now, let's get to the source of it all. The culprit behind this entire mess was a truly massive geological event in Africa, an eruption on a scale that's hard to even imagine. And here's the part of the story that is just mind-blowing. The volcano that caused all this? It hadn't just been quiet. It had been completely dormant for an estimated 12,000 years. An ancient giant, just sleeping, that decided to wake up with incredible force.
So, the name of this volcano? It's the Hale Gubi volcano, and it's located way out in Ethiopia's remote Afar region. It's a name probably none of us had ever heard before, but it suddenly made its presence felt thousands and thousands of miles away.
You know, this wasn't just a headache for airlines. It was a huge deal for scientists. Geologists called it an extraordinary and significant event. And why? Well, because this eruption happened in the East African Rift System, which is one of the most volcanically active places on the entire planet. For scientists who study how our world works, this was like a front-row seat to a major geological show.
Okay, so you've got this giant cloud of ash drifting across the sky. The big question for everyone on the ground is, are we in danger? So let's break down the science here and look at what the actual risks were and, what we can learn from all this.
And this is a really important distinction to make. The threat was very real, but it was also very specific. Way up there in the atmosphere, those tiny ash particles were a serious danger to jet engines. That's why the aviation alerts went out. But down here, on the ground, the Indian Meteorological Department, the IMD, confirmed that there was no direct impact on our air quality. So the danger was all up in the sky, while things were safe down below.
So when you step back and look at the whole thing, what are the big takeaways? Well, first, it's a huge reminder that these volcanoes that have been dormant for thousands of years can and do wake up with shocking power. Second, this is now a major case study for global aviation safety. It really shows why we need that international cooperation and good satellite tracking.
And finally, for climate scientists, this eruption is like a giant natural experiment, giving them incredible data on how particles in the atmosphere can affect our weather.
And that really leaves us with one last pretty big thought. This whole event was kind of like a warning shot from our planet, right? A reminder of these immense, unpredictable forces that are just simmering below the surface. It shows just how interconnected everything is, where a single event on one continent can cause ripples across another. And it forces us to ask a really important question. How ready are we for the next time one of these sleeping giants decides to wake